Hi everyone. In this video recording, I'm going to speak about the recent elections in South Africa, which created the coalition government or the Government of National Unity, the GNU. Uh, I will speak about the GNU, particularly at a provincial level in KZN, and how we saw so many missed opportunities where the MK party, led by former President Jacob Zuma, failed when in actual fact it was easy to win than to fail to form a government. Perhaps they did that intentionally to collapse the government of KZN because the coalition between the DA and the EFF and the ANC is a very weak coalition government because it excludes the majority party which won most of the votes. Of course, the way that they're speaking about it in parliament, they're saying that in order to get a mandate, you must get 50%. That's a full mandate. But 45% and 50% are very close, meaning that it would have made sense for the ANC and the and the MK party to merge their votes and then form a government, forming a government with the majority party rather than minority parties forming a government, because at the end of the day these minority parties might not represent the same thing, meaning that it creates a situation of instability where it is the coalition is hanging by the thread naturally the way it was created. But if there was a majority party and a party with maybe 9%, then they would have more than 50% and be able to run the coalition as two parties, just two parties, and not just two parties, but two parties which have a common political history, because most of the people who come from the MK party come from the ANC. Maybe it's people who are dissatisfied with the election results of the contestation between Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma and Cyril Ramaphosa, which, even though they thought they won when Ace Makashule won the Secretary Generalship, but he was summarily removed after that. So uh, meaning that generally in the ANC, there are many fights. Uh, I think that the ticket, the Jacob Zuma, the Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma ticket, was in a way a Jacob Zuma ticket, and it was a very reasonable ticket in a sense that Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma had been the chairperson of the African Union Commission. She was coming back with a lot of experience from Africa, and remember that the ANC itself, the government, had an Africa policy to say, let us look at Africa. Let us focus at Africa. Let us try to increase our trade with Africa. Let us try to understand Africans, because for a very long time we were excluded from Africa because we were placed in Bantustans or in places and stuff like that. So they have a Africa-centered policy. And Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma was coming from the African Union Commission, but unfortunately, she lost the elections of the ANC, and then President Ramaphosa returned again for the second term, or the for the I mean for the yeah for the first term, because at that time President Zuma had been removed. Remember, President Zuma was hit by the same stick which hit Thabo Mbeki. Thabo Mbeki didn't finish his term. Jacob Zuma did not finish his term. So this is Mkoka, where presidents of the ANC, when they are coming back, and I already know this, I already knew this, and I think many political scientists now have seen this, that it is difficult to be the ANC president and the ANC and the president of the country during your second term, because already some people are planning a succession. So when their plan matures, they don't waste time. They remove you and then they place an interim person, just like Jacob Zuma placed the interim person in the form of Kgalema Motlanthe, President Kgalema Motlanthe, former President Kgalema Motlanthe. And then when Zuma was replaced himself, when he resigned, he was forced to resign, he was replaced by President Ramaphosa. So Ramaphosa has been ruling South Africa for a very long time because he ruled as an interim president. He ruled in the first term. Now he's on his second term. So he's one of the luckiest people to rule South Africa because Kgalema Motlanthe never won. So Kgalema Motlanthe only acted, but when it came to now the actual voting, he didn't become the president because Jacob Zuma was the one who had won in Polokwane. So they knew that Jacob Zuma was supposed to be the president, that Kgalema Motlanthe was going to be an interim president because he was in the Zuma camp for that time. And then when the actual start of the presidential term begins, then President Jacob Zuma is going to take over. So there was that agreement, but Ramaphosa acted, and then later on he took over as a president for the first time, and then he spoke about so many things about social compacts and all of that. Now, my warning to the president of the not the president of the IFP, the chairperson of the IFP in the province of KwaZulu Natal, Tamindul, is that why was it important for the IFP to gain the premiership when the IFP can see that we are not winning 50% in KZN? We are representing the interest of Zulu people. KZN is full of Zulu people. So why are Zulu people not accepting our message that we are working for you in KZN? We are working for the whole of South Africa through Ubuntu and all of that. But we are working for you as a province of KwaZulu-Natal, which happens to have a lot of Zulu people. I could never understand that in my life, for the life of me. Why would Zulu people not listen to an organization that is saying we want to make Zulu people the best people in the world? So when a person thinks of a human being, the best human being must be a Zulu person. Must not be a German or anything like it. Must be a Zulu person. So that's what trying to create as the IFP. But the people of KwaZulu Natal seem to follow other things. Where I stay, there is a voting district where they decide to vote for the EFF. And then I ask myself, why would Zulu people vote for the EFF? Because the EFF is talking about VBS, the vendors, they want their money, the money was stolen, the money is Jacob Zuma also took a loan from the VBS. I don't know whether he paid that loan of 7 million from VBS. I don't understand why would a person from my place be an EFF person. I myself wanted to be an EFF, but only in Gauteng because Gauteng is full of young people. In the villages, they are old people. So now, when you're talking about economic freedom in our lifetime, they will tell you that, okay, Joe, go and work the yard. That is your freedom. I won't pay you. You're cleaning your yard. This is your family yard. But they won't pay you. You will work and you just worked. But there are other people who are doing the same work, maybe for an Indian in Cavendish, or maybe for the white person in Durban North. But they are getting paid. But because we are working at home, we are not getting paid. But we are doing the very same thing that the other person who's getting paid is doing. So those are some of the problems that we face. And I had a conversation with a person, I think maybe a senior manager from the Department of Labor, asking him a simple question. What is the difference between employment and labor? What is the difference between employment and labor? So when I'm working at home, doing maybe even kitchen chores, there are people who get paid to wash dishes. But I'm at home, I'm washing dishes. No one is gonna pay me because maybe I've eaten, maybe I'm being paid through a plate. But the person who washes dishes at a restaurant, how many rands is he getting paid? So if the family is going to be a commercialized family, because Ramaphosa wants the South Africa to be a commercialized country where we look for opportunities to make money. That's what the Ramaphosa, at least that's what my brother told me about Ramaphosa, that he wants people to make money so that they can have money, they can do whatever they want to do, buy big houses, big cars, have nice families, happy families who are fed, who are well clothed, and generally have heaven on earth. That's what Ramaphosa wants to create, a heaven on earth. But now we have 7 trillion debt. How do you create a heaven when you are owing 7 trillion in debt? That is what Kotongwane said. Kotongwane is a minister of finance, meaning that is an official statement to say, as a country, we are owing 7 trillion. How many people do we have in terms of the population? How many people? So now, if we are owing 7 trillion, how much money should each citizen pay in order to pay that debt, so that we don't pay a lot of interest? So we pay the debt at once, and then if there are some things that won't be done, maybe the grass won't be cut, maybe the trains will be late, or they will be fixed, at a slower pace, but we have paid the debt. So now we are living a debt-free life. We are starting afresh, we are building an economy, we are saving. But after having paid the 7 trillion rand, that's what we should be thinking about. That's what Kodongwane was saying. But I don't think he saw the gravity of the situation, because I was telling my brother that even a billion is a lot of money if you think about it, owing someone a billion. But now if we are owing 7 trillion, that's a lot of money, and we must make sure that we find ways of paying for that money. We have cattle, we have goats. Maybe we must sell all our possession and pay these people, and make sure that they are paid, so that they don't owe us, or they don't tell us they have a superiority complex over us because we owe them money, and it may be ending up doing other things to recover their money, which are not related to commercial activities. So we must be very careful. I've said this before, that if Ramaphosa cannot solve this debt crisis, then his presidency would have failed, because he's supposed to solve the debt crisis, because that's the biggest crisis that we are facing, not gender-based violence. Because you can beat your wife, but if maybe people are beating their wives because we are owing 7 trillion, they are frustrated, they are trying to find this 7 trillion. Where is this 7 trillion going to come from, and how was that debt of 7 trillion created? So maybe that's what people are crazy about, like how did we come to this position, particularly when we are a country that gained freedom after other countries. So all the traps that the capital system has set for other African countries, we are supposed to know it and be able to prevent it at all times. So I think they would be laughing at us in Kenya if they actually suffered the same thing. They say the South Africans are not smart, that they never studied the Kenyans. So if they studied the Kenyans, they would know that if someone borrows money, there's interest, you end up paying the interest, and have a minister who just paying the interest when the principal is also creating the interest, and then you end up with a lot of debts. But if you just pay the debt at once and sacrifice certain things, maybe that is what structural adjustment program mean. That already you have done a huge mistake. You've committed a huge mistake by borrowing money. You are not supposed to borrow money. You're supposed to work. Uhambe ngala mandla now. Try to create something from scratch. If it's not beautiful, but you've created it with the resources that were in your possession, you didn't borrow anything from anyone, because if you borrow, there is a time to pay. So that is the lecture today, which really is a response to the communists, because the communists asked me a question. I don't know whether they will listen to this, but this is my response to the communists. This is what I'm saying. 7 trillion rand is a lot of money that has to be paid so that we can live debt-free lives. Thank you.